Hi people, I know it's been a while since I've done a recording. This is technically the second one I've done on this presentation. The first one, for some reason, wouldn't store, right? So today we're going to talk about the rise of Nazism. How did Hitler become into power? What were his ideals when coming into power? And how did he expand that caused World War II? So this was the word I was supposed to give you today, but for some reason I just totally blanked. Fascism is a type of government that declares a nation or race superior of others and uses the idea to have complete power, usually have dictatorship. So fascism is the idea that a certain ethnicity or a certain group of people are better than others, and then the rest of the people are inferior. In that picture, you have Hitler, who believed that the Aryan race was a superior power and superior race. And then next to Hitler, you have Benito Mussolini from Italy, who believed in that ancient Roman culture. Following fascism, remember that you guys can pause the video at any point to answer your questions and to complete that worksheet. I'm talking and while talking throughout the whole thing, but remember, you guys can pause. The next word is anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism is hatred or discrimination against Jews as a national, ethnic, religious, or racial group. Anti-Semitism is the hatred of Jews and any actions taken against Jews. Um, in a few slides, I'll talk more about why Jews. So we start with the Great Depression. We skipped the Roaring Twenties and the Great Depression to get to Unit 10 because otherwise we weren't going to get to it. But to recap a little bit what was going on during the Great Depression in Germany. When the stock market collapsed on Wall Street on Tuesday, October 29, 1929, it sent financial markets worldwide into chaos. The Wall Street is located in New York and it crashed in New York City, but it was not just a problem for the United States, it was a problem for everyone. Everyone went to economic crisis. Germany was no exception. The crisis hit Germany even worse because they were just beginning to build themselves up from the Treaty of Versailles. If you guys remember, the end of World War One, Germany was blamed for the war, and they were forced to sign the Treaty of Versailles. In the Treaty of Versailles, Germany admits it's their fault. They lose land, they lose military power, and they have to pay back a hefty fine. And Germany was just starting to come back when the market crashed and it led to a series of problems. Due to the economic crash, production levels fell, German workers were laid off, banks failed, savings are gone, hyperinflation making it hard for families to purchase expensive necessities. Necessities were very expensive. In the picture you have there, you have a group of kids playing with some kind of boxes. These boxes are filled with money. German currency had absolutely no value. It went into hyperinflation, and the money was better used as a toy for kids or paper to burn to heat up the stove. Their money went into hyperinflation and it caused the bare necessities to be very expensive. So Germany is looking for some type of salvation. They were hit hard after World War I, the Treaty of Versailles. They were just coming back to the 1920s, and then the market crashed and they hit rock bottom. So they're looking and they're desperate. Germany's democratic system was also weak. Hitler took advantage of the situation and played the game. The Nazis were very weak and chaotic before the Great Depression. During the Great Depression, they became what we know today as being the Nazis. But at the beginning, they were not the best group. The German people were tired of the political games in Berlin, misery, suffering, weaknesses. People in Germany were desperate and they were willing to listen to anyone, even Adolf Hitler. So Hitler tries to gain power with the Beer Hall Putsch. On November 18, 1923, Hitler and his associates had created a plot to seize power of the Bavarian state government, which they hoped it would lead to a large rebellion against the Weimar Republic, which was the current government in Germany. Hitler proposed a push because he was inspired by dictator Benito Mussolini. Mussolini literally walked into Rome with a military on October of 1922, and he successfully took control of the Italian government. Hitler was hoping that the same would happen in Germany. There are obviously other details and other key players in this event, but I can't share everything. Um, so it failed. The Nazis at the time were not all well organized. Hitler was captured and sent to prison, and he was convicted on February 26, 1924, and he was sentenced to 5 years in prison to serve at Landsberg prison. He served less than a year. He was released on December 20, 1924. While he was in jail, he wrote a book called Mein Kampf, translated to My Struggle. In the book, he specifically blames and calls out the Jews as the German problem. But one thing you have to understand is Nazis were not the first group of people to hate the Jews. As you should have learned in world history, Jews have always been blamed for multiple things throughout, since the creation of their religion. Ancient Egypt, where the Jews were used as slaves because they only believed in one God, when majority of the religions at the time believed in multiple gods. Um, and they were transferring from ancient times to the Common Era. Jews were then blamed for the sacrifice and the persecution of Jesus Christ. Keep in mind, the Romans were the ones who crucified him. The Jews were just the ones who gave him up. Then we have the Middle Ages, where Jews were blamed for the Black Death and they were burned alive for it. And then post-World War, Jews are blamed for the destruction of Germany. So anti-Semitism or hatred of Jews goes back a very long time. It's not something that just came out during Hitler's reign. He just picked on something that people hated and pushed it further. Even during this time frame when we're moving, from the 1800s to the 1900s, you have several countries throughout Europe and several kingdoms throughout Europe who are kicking out the Jews out of their territory. So it's not something new. There's a little bit more, but for you guys to understand this root of Jewish hatred, you really have to go back and learn from the root to today. So then Hitler gets a big break. Hitler was becoming popular. At the time, he was not aggressive and his views as we know him today. So when Hitler was becoming popular, he was gaining his power. He wasn't as aggressive and very vocal on his Jewish hatred until later on in his reign. At the time, Paul von Hindenburg was president / prime minister of Germany, and at the time, he decided to name Hitler Chancellor of Germany in 1933. Why? Why would Hindenburg put his nemesis as chancellor? And that's because he believed that the whole idea of keep your friends close but your enemies closer. So he saw that Hitler was becoming popular and he was raising into power, but he believed that maybe if he put him under his wing, he would have a better control of him. Then on February 27, 1933, someone sets fire to the Reichstag building, which is Germany's parliament. Nazis released propaganda blaming the communists for this act. Nazi propaganda is some of the best propaganda ever produced. They were really great at producing multitudes of propaganda to convince the public of what they want them to believe. So they made people believe that the fire was started by communists. There are rumors out there that people believe that Hitler himself and the Nazis themselves ordered that fire on Reichstag building. But we don't really know. But But the reason why, maybe the data did not certify that's one thing, but the Nazi propaganda they for sure did. And the reason why they produce all this propaganda is because they want to invoke fear. And as we talk about this multiple times in class, people take the drastic actions when they are scared. So they picked on this fear that was already established, and Hitler was able to convince Hindenburg to restrict personal rights as freedom of speech and to give himself power, absolute power, as a prime minister of Germany. Hitler convinced Hindenburg to do this. He influenced him on making these decisions. And you may be wondering, well, why is Hitler convincing another man to take absolute power? And that's because on March 23rd, 1933, Hitler rises up and is co leading the country with Hindenburg, but in reality, he has already moved into the power, into the head. He was just waiting for something to happen to Hindenburg, and then Hindenburg dies. Did Hitler have anything to do with Hindenburg's death? I'm not sure. We're not sure on that. But after Hindenburg's death, that is when truly Hitler received all the power. The Nazis began their power by restricting opposing parties and removing any enemies from their path. So as soon as Hitler comes into absolute power, he begins to get rid of the competition. What are Nazi ideals and beliefs? Nazis believe in a socialist and consider that their form of government is what we call the Third Way or the Third Reich. We're neither socialist nor democratic. They're somewhere in the middle. That's what they call themselves, the National Socialism. And the Third Reich, it just means the third form of government. They centered on one powerful leader who would improve nationalism, militarism, and racial purity, and that was Hitler and his beliefs on what would be great for Germany, even though technically he wasn't German, he was from Austria. They also believed in repairing German supremacy by bringing back the economy, rearming the military, and ignoring foreign treaties. And when they're stating foreign treaties, they're specifically talking about the Treaty of Versailles. It was a disgrace that Germany was forced to sign, and a it was treason for those people who signed them. And now Hitler is trying to raise up that pride again. Brought back traditional values as conservatism and Christian beliefs, and then the Nazis considered races like Jews, Slavs, and Romans to be subhuman, as well as homosexuals, the mentally ill or disabled. Hitler's purification of race and claiming the Aryan race as a pure race was not his own idea either. So Hitler's belief, one of his beliefs, that in order to create a great empire and to have the Third Reich for 1,000 years was to base it on a purified race. And he was claiming that the Iranian race are that pure race. An Iranian race is not just blonde hair and blue eyes, as many of you believe. There are other characteristics to it. What Hitler was aiming at are the people who can trace their ancestors into Indo-European, and we're talking about centuries and centuries back into the establishment of Europe and the establishment of Germany with Charlemagne and the Franks and so on and so forth. And he believed that the people who were ideal were the people who can trace their ancestry back to those roots. Like everything else Hitler has come up with, this is not his own idea. You do have I can't remember what his name is now, but you do have a book out during this time that talks about race purification and having the ideal race. And Hitler took ideas from that book, and he took ideas from the eugenics movement in the United States to really focus in on this purification of races. I talk about eugenics here in the United States. The United States was not killing people, but they were attempting to sterilize all undesired people. There was a movement back in the day. It didn't really gain popularity, and the United States stopped, but it was too late because Hitler had already heard about it. And he saw as an example of how to purify races. United States just never went as far as killing someone. This is what your typically good German should have looked like. Mm. Nazi propaganda, like I said, was really good at producing different pieces of propaganda. This was one of them, and how a pure Iranian race should look like, and they should have be looking at these different characteristics to identify if you are Iranian or not. We will talk about two specific Nazis. On your left side, you have the Nazis that were considered the foot soldiers. They were the ones who fought the war, and their symbol was represented by the swastika, which again is not something Hitler created. If you move that signal, that the swastika 90 degrees, you would have the symbol for good luck in Hinduism. On your right side, you have the SS. The SS were the lethal group. They kept the Jews in order first in the ghettos and later in the concentration camps. They were the ones responsible for killing the Jews. Their symbol is the Schwarzstaffel. So this is the two types of the Nazis that we're going to talk about. The Nazis who were the plain, soldiers, and you have the SS that were the lethal weapons of Hitler. Obviously, there are more divisions within these divisions, but these are pretty much the generic ones. We also have the Gestapos, which were your community cops that would assist the SS at rounding up the Jews. Nazi hierarchy. Obviously, the leader is Adolf Hitler. His propaganda minister, the man behind a lot of these propaganda pieces, is Dr. Joseph Goebbels. The leader of the military is Hermann Göring. He was a pilot during World War One, and he is the leader primarily of the Air Force. He is the man behind Blitzkrieg, which we'll talk about that later on. Then we have the commander of the SS, Heinrich Himmler. He is the one in the leadership of controlling and deciding what to do with the Jews. Then we have second in command Rudolf Hess. Rudolf Hess was important to Hitler at the beginning and when they were rising in Germany. Later on, he just became a yes man. And he was pretty much out at the very beginning of the war. If you want to learn more about Hitler's hierarchy and these men that Hitler surrounded himself with, there is like a docu series kind of thing on Netflix. I think it's called Hitler's Inner Circle, where they explain in detail the rise of Nazism and how all these men came together. Stop this video and watch video one. You guys actually need to watch the video. Some of you have not been watching the videos and skipping them. It helps you understand these concepts and the storytelling and better and gives you visualizations. So we begin with Nazi expansion. Nazis began their expansion by fortifying some alliances. On October 25, 1936, Germany and Italy signed a treaty. Then on November 25th, 1936, Germany and Japan signed a next treaty. And the treaty between Japan and Germany was specifically to defend themselves from Russia. Germany's biggest threat is Russia. France and Great Britain are a threat too, but their biggest threat is Russia. And Germany has to figure out what can they do to keep Russia at bay. So after Nazis feel that they're confident enough with their treaties, and keep in mind both Italy and Japan are going through this dictatorship. Remember, those were some of the dictators, the rise of dictators that we have talked about. You also have Spain, but Spain stayed neutral during World War II because they were going through their own civil war. If it wasn't because of that, Spain would have joined the Germans and the Italians and the Japanese, but they had their own internal issues. Nazi expansion. Nazis, not feeling confident about their treaties, decided to acquire some land. On March 7, 1936, Hitler reoccupies the Rhineland. The Rhineland was taken away from the Germans at the end of World War I with the Treaty of Versailles. The Rhineland is important because it produces coal, steel, and iron. The Rhineland is located between Belgium, Netherlands, and France. Hitler just walked over and took the Rhineland. The United States, France, and Great Britain watched as this was happening. They didn't really oppose it. Then on March 12, 1938, Nazis invade Austria, which is right here. Again, United States, Great Britain, France are watching this, and they don't oppose them. They just simply say, oh, Austrians want to be Nazis. Watch the video to answer the question on your chart and for you to see how Austria received the Nazis. Then on March 15, 1939, Nazis take Western Czechoslovakia, which is right there. Again, France, Great Britain, and the United States are watching. They don't really take out any actions against the Nazis at this time, but they are watching, and then they're hoping that Hitler has fulfilled his desire of land and expansion, that he will stop. Great Britain and France got the feeling that he was going to try to go against Poland, and he was warned that he already took the Rhineland, he already took Austria, he already took Western Czechoslovakia, that should be enough. And that he tries to invade Poland, it will be declaration of war. Did Hitler care? Not really. What he has to do next is sign a treaty with Russia on August 23rd, 1939. The treaty was an agreement between both nations that they will not attack each other within the next 10 years, and that they will carve out Eastern Europe for their benefit, primarily Poland. But there were alternatives to the reason for signing this treaty. Russia's alternative reason was that they were stalling. It was a stalling tactic to build a strong army to eventually fight off the Nazis. The Russians understood that Germany was gaining great power, and they were not going to be satisfied for what they've already taken, that they would want more, and that eventually it will lead to another great war, so they had to prepare themselves. Germany took the agreement to buy themselves time to gain enough power and expansion to attack Russians. So on September 1st, 1939, Nazis invade Poland. Watch video 3. It is very interesting. The causes and how the invasion of Poland came to be. On September 3rd, 1939, France, Great Britain declared war on Germany. World War II has commenced. Poland had no chances, to be honest. On the west, you were surrounded by Nazis. On the east, you were surrounded by the Soviet Union. Poland had no chance. But Nazi expansion didn't stop there. Between May 10, 1940 to June 22, 1940, Germany invades Luxembourg, Netherlands, Belgium, and France. On June 10, 1940, Italy officially enters the war, backing up Germany. One of Hitler's greatest triumphs was the taking of Paris. He made a special trip just to be photographed and tour the city of Paris under the Nazi regime. You also have to remember that Hitler was a fanatic of art. If it wasn't because that art school failed him, didn't accept him, maybe history would have been different. And the Nazis used the invasion of Paris as a shopping spree as well, because that is where they looted a lot of the art in Paris, and they took it back to Germany. So they literally walked into the Louvre and were just taking paintings. But again, Hitler was not satisfied. He then decided to take Norway and Denmark. Between April 9th and June 10, 1940, Nazis invade Denmark and Norway in an attempt to slow down Great Britain and France's attack against them. So instead of Great Britain and France attacking the Germans directly, they decided to attack their supply route. And one of the reasons was that Germans were receiving some of the supplies from northern Norway and Sweden and Finland up here. So they felt that in order to attack them directly, attack them first from their supply lines. And how did Germany rebuttal? Well, they rebutted by taking down Denmark and Norway. And then in the spring of 1940, the Nazis take siege of the Balkans, which make up of Hungary, Romania, Yugoslavia, Bulgaria, and Greece. Again, fulfilling that need to become the world power. Then on September 22nd, 1941, Italy, Japan, and Germany signed a treaty, and they are now considered the Axis powers in this war. Then the Nazis decide, I don't know, you could say this is their downfall or not. But then the Nazis decide to go up against their biggest threat. They feel that they're strong enough to do it. And on June 22nd, 1941, the Nazis attacked Russia, the Soviet Union, also known as the USSR, also known as the SSR. And that's it. Nazis went up against their biggest nemesis, against their biggest threat. In 1939, they signed a treaty with Russia to protect themselves from each other and to stall. Now the stalling is over. Germans believe that they are strong enough to fight the Russians, and they invade Russia. They went deep. They went pretty good, not really deep into Russia, because you have to understand, Russia is pretty wide, but they entered a great bit of land. They also looted Russia from their art. Their Catherine the Great, one of the palaces in Russia had Catherine the Great Amber Room, which is a beautiful room all made of amber, precious stone, and they looted that room, and now that room is lost. They don't know where the amber wall panelings are located after the Nazis took them. Obviously, because of Nazis invading Russia, Russia has not joined the side of the Allies, and now Russia, along with France and Great Britain, are fighting the war against the Nazis, Japan, and Italy. We have to remember it's a great war because it's not only those European powers, but their colonies are being involved in this war. Watch video 4 from the beginning to minute 17 with 16 seconds. Again, it will help you visualize and see the location of these countries of what I've been talking about in the last few slides. Make sure you guys watch the videos. Some of you have not been watching the videos. Some of you don't even watch the videos where I'm presenting this PowerPoint. It seems like some of you just put the video on and put me on mute. Okay, guys. I know it seems a lot, but again, I'm trying to condense as much information as possible before the end of the school year so we could get to at least a good chunk of this unit. We're not going to finish it, obviously, but at least you have some understanding what the rise of Nazism. And again, this is just a brief overview of the rise of Nazis. There's a lot more in-depth stuff that is going on, a lot more characters I didn't mention. But again, there's no time. Okay. Hope everyone's great. Hope everyone's safe. FYI, baby's no longer a baby. She's 1 now. It was her birthday last week. I thought about posting pictures on Google Classroom, on her birthday celebration. Obviously, we didn't do anything. It's just us here at home. Um, but she had like a little cute photo shoot and everything. But I think it's kind of weird. All right. Like I said, stay safe, and I'll see you when I see you.